The room in Nicopolis smells of oil smoke from the lamps and damp wool from the cloaks of students who have come in from the coastal rain. And the old man, seated because his leg has never healed properly, waits for the noise to settle before he speaks. A young Roman in the third row, still flushed from an argument he had that morning with his father over an inheritance, leans forward with the expression of a man who has come a great distance to be told he is right. Epictetus looks at him for a long moment, and then, without raising his voice, says that every matter has two handles, and that the young man has, without noticing, spent the whole morning grasping the one that cannot be carried. What the old man means by this, and why he chooses to phrase it as he does, is the subject of what follows. For Epictetus, who was born a slave in Phrygia and who limped from an injury received, it is said, at the hands of a master, spent his working life teaching young men of the equestrian and senatorial classes how to hold their own lives. He taught them, above all, that the handle by which one grasps a thing determines whether the thing can be borne at all. This is the principle we will examine tonight. It is stated in the Enchiridion, the little handbook compiled by his student Arrian in the 43rd chapter, and it reads in the old translation of George Long as follows: "Everything has two handles, the one by which it may be borne, the other by which it may not. If your brother acts unjustly, do not lay hold of the act by that handle, wherein he acts unjustly, for this is the handle which cannot be borne. But lay hold of the other, that he is your brother, that he was nurtured with you, and you will lay hold of the thing by that handle by which it can be borne." Consider what he is saying. He is not saying that the injustice is unreal. He is not saying that the brother has not acted, or that the act has not wounded. He is saying that any event which comes to us presents more than one aspect, more than one surface, by which the mind may take hold of it, and that the aspect we choose determines what we are then able to do. The handle is not the event. The handle is our relation to the event, and it is in that relation, and only in that relation, that we have any freedom at all. One must consider how strange this claim would have sounded to the young Roman in the third row. He had come, we may suppose, with a grievance he considered self-evident. His brother had cheated him, or his father had favored the other son, or an old friend had spoken against him in the forum. The handle he was gripping was the handle of the wrong done to him, and he had gripped it so tightly for so many hours that his knuckles were white, and his mind could hold nothing else. To be told that there was another handle, and that the one he held could not in fact be carried, would have struck him at first as a kind of evasion, a philosopher's trick. It is only when one sits with the teaching for a while that one begins to see it is not a trick at all. It is a description of how the mind actually works, when the mind is honest with itself about what it can and cannot do. The Stoics divided the world, as you may know, into things which are up to us and things which are not up to us. Our judgments, our impulses, our desires and aversions, our assent to impressions, these are up to us. Our bodies, our property, our reputations, the actions of others, these are not. To lay hold of an event by the handle of what another has done to us is to grip a handle that lies wholly outside the sphere of our own agency. It is to try to lift a weight by a rope tied to another man's belt. He will move as he pleases, and we will be dragged, and no amount of straining will change this. The other handle, the one that can be borne, is always to be found on the side of what belongs to us, our own judgment, our own posture, our own recognition of what the person before us actually is, our brother, our fellow citizen, our kinsman in reason. Let us reflect for a moment on where Epictetus was standing when he taught this. He had come to Nicopolis on the western coast of what is now Greece in the year 93 of the Common Era, or thereabouts, when the Emperor Domitian expelled the philosophers from Rome. He was by then perhaps in his 40s. He had been born a slave in Hierapolis, in Phrygia, in the household of a man named Epictetus, who was himself a freedman of the Emperor Nero and a functionary of considerable power in the imperial court. We do not know Epictetus's birth name. Epictetus itself is not a name but a description, a Greek word meaning simply acquired, the kind of designation one gave to a purchased human being. He carried this designation for the rest of his life, and he did not, so far as we know, ever ask to be called anything else. At some point in his youth or early manhood, while still enslaved, he was permitted to attend the lectures of the Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus, one of the great figures of Roman philosophy in the 1st century, a man who himself had been exiled more than once for his convictions. That a slave should be permitted, this education tells us something about the household of Epictetus, and perhaps something about the peculiar arrangements by which philosophy circulated in the Roman world, but it does not soften the fact of his condition. He was a slave. He could be bought and sold. He could be beaten. There is a story preserved in the writings of the later philosopher Celsus and repeated in Origen that his master, in a fit of anger, twisted his leg. Epictetus, we are told, remarked calmly that if the master continued, the leg would break. The master continued. The leg broke. Epictetus still calmly said, "Did I not tell you it would break?" Whether the story is true in its details or is a later embellishment offered as an emblem of what his students admired in him, we cannot know. What we do know is that he walked with a limp for the rest of his life, and we know that when he taught, decades later, he taught with a kind of authority that could only have come from a man who had tested his own doctrines against a life in which the ordinary consolations were not available to him. He was freed at some point after Nero's death in 68. He began to teach in Rome, and then, in the reign of Domitian, when the emperor grew hostile to philosophers, as emperors periodically did, he was expelled with the rest and made his way to Nicopolis. There, he established a school. His students were mostly young Roman men of good family, sent by their fathers to acquire a certain seriousness before entering public life. He lived, we are told, in a small house with few possessions. He had a lamp, an earthenware one, which he kept because a bronze one had once been stolen from him, and he had concluded that the earthenware was less likely to tempt a thief. He seems to have had no wife or children, though in his old age he took in an infant who would otherwise have been exposed to die and hired a woman to nurse the child. He wrote nothing himself. Everything we have from him comes to us through Arrian, a young senator and future historian who attended the lectures and copied down what the master said, insisting in his preface that he had tried to preserve the exact words, the exact tone, the exact bluntness of the speech, without literary embellishment. This, then, is the man who tells the young Roman about the two handles. Consider the position from which he speaks. He has been property. He has been beaten. He has been exiled. He limps as he moves about the lecture room, and he is teaching men who, in an earlier configuration of fortune, might have bought him at auction. If anyone in that room had a grievance he could grasp by the handle of injustice, it was the teacher. If anyone had permission to say, "This is unbearable, this cannot be carried," it was the man with the ruined leg. And yet what he says is that everything has two handles, and that the one which cannot be borne is not to be chosen. He is not speaking as one who has read about hardship. He is speaking as one who has spent decades practicing the very selection he now describes. Let us look more closely then at how the principle functioned in the substance of his teaching as it comes to us through the Discourses. The Discourses are a longer work than the Enchiridion, 4 books of them surviving out of what were originally 8, and in them we hear Epictetus speaking, not in polished aphorisms, but in the actual back and forth of the classroom, questioning students, refuting them, mocking them gently when they came to him with their small vanities and their large grievances. The two handles image is drawn from these conversations. It belongs to a whole pattern of teaching in which he tries, again and again, to redirect his students from the outer aspect of an event to its inner reception. He says, in one of the Discourses, that men are disturbed not by the things which happen, but by the opinions about the things. The Greek word is dogmata, judgments, the propositions we form and then assent to, often without noticing that we have done so. When a man says, "My brother has wronged me, and I cannot bear it," he has assented to 2 propositions. The first is that his brother has wronged him, which may or may not be true. The second is that he cannot bear it, which is almost never true, and is in any case a proposition about himself, not about his brother. Epictetus's method is to slow the student down at this point, to make him look at the 2 propositions separately, and to notice that the second one, the one which produces the suffering, is entirely of the student's own making. It is a handle he has fashioned and then grasped. The remedy is not, and Epictetus is careful about this, to deny the first proposition. He does not tell the young Roman that his brother has not wronged him. He does not ask for the impossible feat of pretending an injury away. He asks instead for a different grip. Lay hold of the fact that this is your brother, he says. Lay hold of the fact that you were nurtured together, that you shared a mother, that whatever he has done, he remains bound to you by a tie which precedes and outlasts this particular act. This handle, unlike the other, is one you can carry. It will not drag you behind another man's motions. It rests in your own recognition of the relation, and the recognition is yours to make or to withhold. We may sharpen the point by considering another passage. In the 11th chapter of the Enchiridion, Epictetus writes, again in Long's translation, "Never say about anything, 'I have lost it,' but say, 'I have restored it.' Is your child dead? It has been restored. Is your wife dead? She has been restored. Has your estate been taken from you? Has not then this also been restored?" One must sit with this for a moment. The teaching is severe. It is, on first hearing, close to intolerable. A father who has just lost a child, told that the child has been restored, not lost, may well feel that philosophy has here betrayed him, has abandoned the ground of ordinary feeling for a chilly abstraction. But look again. Epictetus is not saying the child did not die. He is not saying the grief is illegitimate. He is saying that the handle by which one grasps the death, the handle of possession of what was mine and has been taken from me, is not the handle by which the event can be born. The child was never a possession. The child was a loan, a trust, something given for a season and always destined to be returned, whether after 80 years or after 2. To grasp the death by the handle of theft is to accuse the nature of things, which does not answer accusations and which will not modify its course to accommodate one's outrage. To grasp it by the handle of return is to acknowledge that everything given is, from the first moment, also owed back, and that the giving and the returning together constitute the whole shape of what we call a life. This is not consolation, as we now use the word. Epictetus is not offering comfort. He is offering a description of how the world is arranged, and he is saying that the man who has understood the arrangement is the man who can walk upright in it. The one who has not understood will spend his years being dragged by handles that cannot be carried. Consider how this teaching would have landed in the lecture room. There must have been students who could not accept it, who left, who went back to their fathers' villas and their inheritances and their grievances, and who never returned. Epictetus did not, I think, try to hold them. He said on more than one occasion that philosophy was not for everyone, that a man should first consider what the discipline required and whether he could pay the price. The price, in this case, was the willingness to give up a particular way of gripping the world. It was the willingness to notice over and over that one was reaching for the wrong handle, and to set it down, and to reach again for the other. He himself, we must suppose, practiced this discipline continually. When his lamp was stolen, in the story he tells, he did not curse the thief. He said, in effect, the thief has paid a great price for a small object. He has traded away his own character for a bronze lamp. He is the one to be pitied, not I. This is not a pose. It is the actual operation of the two handles doctrine. The event, the theft, presented two aspects. One handle read, I have been robbed, this is unjust, I am the victim of another's wrong. The other handle read, this is a man who has damaged himself worse than he has damaged me, and my possession, which I never truly owned, has returned to the common stock of things. He chose the second handle, replaced the lamp with an earthenware one, and went on teaching. The same discipline appears in his handling of exile. He was expelled from Rome by Domitian, along with the other philosophers, in what must have been a humiliating episode for men who had built their lives around the city. He does not, so far as we can tell from the Discourses, complain about it. He speaks of exile as a change of place, nothing more. A man who has understood what is up to him and what is not up to him, he says, is at home wherever he is, because his home is not a location but a relation to himself. Nicopolis is not Rome, but the mind that Epictetus carried to Nicopolis was the same mind that had taught in Rome, and the students who came to hear him found the same teacher. What then is Epictetus actually teaching when we strip the doctrine down to its structural core? He is teaching first that every event is compound. It is never one thing. It is always at least two things, an outer occurrence and an inner reception, and the two must not be confused. The outer occurrence is what it is, and we have no say in it. The inner reception is ours, entirely, and without remainder, and we have complete say in it, though we habitually pretend we do not. He is teaching, second, that the inner reception has a structure, and that its structure is best understood by the image of grasping. When something happens, the mind reaches out and takes hold of it in a particular way. This taking hold is not automatic, though it feels automatic. It is a choice made so quickly and so habitually that we do not notice we are making it. The whole discipline of Stoic practice for Epictetus consists in slowing this moment down, in bringing the taking hold into the light of attention, and in learning to notice before the grip closes that there is more than one place to grip. He is teaching, third, that the handles are not equally weighted. One handle bears, the other does not. The one that bears is always the one that lies within the sphere of our own agency, our own judgment, our own recognition of what belongs to us and what does not. The one that does not bear is always the one that lies outside that sphere, in the actions of others, in the workings of fortune, in the movements of a world that will not adjust itself to our preferences. To choose the handle that bears is not to deny the reality of the other handle. It is to recognize that the other handle, though real, is not one we can carry, and that to grasp it is to guarantee that we will be dragged rather than that we will walk. He is teaching. Fourth, and this is perhaps the deepest layer, that the choice of handle is itself a form of self-formation. A man who habitually grips events by the handle of injustice becomes a certain kind of man, a man of grievances, a man whose face bears the imprint of what he cannot forgive. A man who habitually grips events by the handle of relation, of return, of what belongs to him and what does not, becomes a different kind of man. The handles shape the hand. Over years, the shape becomes permanent. The Stoic is not born. The Stoic is made by 10,000 small selections of the handle that bears. There is a further point, which Epictetus does not always state, but which runs through the whole teaching. The two handles are not equally available at all moments. In the first shock of an event, the handle of grievance often presents itself first, thrust into the hand before the mind has had a chance to see the alternative. The teaching does not deny this. It says rather that with practice, the mind learns to wait. It learns not to close the grip until it has looked. And this waiting, this small pause between impression and assent, is the whole space in which human freedom operates. It is a narrow space. It is often only a breath wide, but it is the space in which we are, in the Stoic sense, ourselves. The wise man knows this space and lives in it. The rest of us pass through it too quickly and find ourselves already committed to a handle we did not deliberately choose. Epictetus's whole pedagogy is aimed at teaching his students to inhabit that space, to expand it, to move within it with the ease that comes only from long habituation. This is why he speaks so often of practice, of exercise, of the small daily disciplines by which the mind is trained to notice its own operations. The two handles image is not a slogan. It is a description of a skill, and skills are acquired by repetition over years in circumstances that grow gradually harder. Consider then, before the lamps in the lecture hall are extinguished, what handles you have been grasping today. Not in the large events of your life, which are easier to bring to mind, but in the small ones, the delayed message, the sharp word from someone who was tired, the news from a distance that arrived without warning. In each case, there were, we are told, two handles. One was the handle of what had been done to you. The other was the handle of what remained yours, your recognition, your relation, your judgment about how the matter would be received. You will not remember, in most cases, which one you chose. You chose so quickly that the choice was made before you saw it. This is the ordinary condition of the mind, and Epictetus does not condemn it. He only asks whether, tomorrow, you might notice the choice one time more than you did today, and the day after, one time more than that. The question he leaves with you is not whether your grievances are real. He grants that they may be. The question is whether the handle by which you are carrying them is the handle by which they can be carried, or whether you have spent the morning, as the young Roman did, straining at a weight that was never going to yield to your effort. If it is the latter, the old man in the lecture hall would say, "Set it down," not because the weight is not there, but because there is another handle on the other side of the same event, and it has been waiting for you all along. Whether you find it tonight, or tomorrow, or in some year still distant from this one, is not, in the end, the point. The point is that it is there. The point is that everything has two handles, and the point is that the choice of which one to grasp is, and has always been, entirely yours.